The Gunner's Vault is brought to you by Robbie Bishop Photography, the official photographer of Acadiana Gunworks and the Gunner's Vault.
Unfortunately, not everyone can own a machine gun like this. There's certain rules you gotta live by. It sucks, but it's the truth. There's also licensing and a little bit of skill. Believe it or not, we got both. Welcome to the Gunner's Vault. Hi kids! Guess what? Today we have a special guest coming and we have a pretty cool little device here to talk about. I'll give you a hint. It's not a little rocket. This is a 40mm grenade. Not to be confused with the cheesy 37mm grenades that everybody calls grenades that aren't really. They're actually flares. If somebody says, hey man, I got a 37mm grenade launcher, go ahead and just smack them around because they're wrong. So anyway, back to this. I've shot them in the military. Don't know a ton about their history, but I know someone who does. And that's my friend Geoff. Geoff, go ahead. Inform the masses.
Hello world, Geoff's back to tell you about the M203 40mm grenade launcher. Like Glenn said, this is a real grenade launcher. This is the cool SOCOM stuff. This setup is basically like late 90s SOCOM goodness.
And if I can interject for a second, you can tell it's cool because you got a big loud noise maker and then you got the little suppressor on the front. So you can go loud or, quiet.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can also do that thing like in Battlefield 2 when you deploy it and you're like, you can do that for real. Oh, it feels really good to do that, by the way. So this is the KAC leaf sight.
Oh, we should mention it doesn't kick as much as it does in Call of Duty.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big COD guy. I got out of PC gaming a few years ago.
Xbox, man.
I never got into the Xbox thing. I'm old school PC. Hence the Battlefield 2.
I'm old school PC. I had an Atari 800.
That is old school.
That's
like one of the first computers that you could buy ever.
Floppy disk this big.
That's pretty awesome.
Okay, my bad.
That's good. I mean, we talk about that. We talk about Super NES emulators. Ooh. But you guys are here to see the 203. So, yeah. It's about 3 pounds, mostly of aluminum. The barrel's aluminum. The receiver is aluminum. This whole piece from here to here, the top part, that's all the receiver. That's one piece. They CNC machine these things. This one is the later 9-inch barrel. Like I said, it's got the KAC leaf sight. They also issue in the military a less expensive, subcontracted from a bunch of different guys, leaf sight. This one's not as good as the KAC. It's kind of flimsier.
Why's it got to be flimsier?
I don't know, man. You were in the military. Think about the subcontractors and
you can't hit a damn thing with
the cheapness.
Yeah, it's the cheapness.
It's the cheapness.
I won't go flimsy on it.
This is the cheapness, and this is the expensive one that they issue to SOCOM. And I've seen some Marine units equipped with those, but I'm guessing that was some dude on Fedlog hooked them up. But in general, SOCOM runs the KAC ones because they're better built. They're more streamlined. There's less places to snag your hand or gloves or your shamar or whatever on the thing. So that's nice. Also nice is this KAC quick detach mount that they designed. I'm not sure when these came out, but I think it was in the 90s. Prior to that, they used to have this old school setup with just stampings and the little fiberglass insulator bushing thing.
Or ceramic. There was some debate on what they're made out of. But look, they do that.
They do that, and they make a circle. And yeah, and that circle takes up the space actually on an A1 barrel. These were originally made to go on an M16A1 pencil barrel, and these bushings were designed for this bracket, and it was all made to work together. So, speaking of back in time, let's go back in time and talk about the origins of the M203 grenade launcher, of which I brought notes. So, once upon a time, the U.S. military did not have a grenade launcher that fired self-contained grenades like this. They had rifle grenades.
And they were sad.
They were sad. They had rifle grenades that went on the end of their muzzle and were propelled by blanks. And this is an old setup. Like they had these, I don't think World War I, but maybe right after World War I they came out. And lots of countries had them. and you had to load a blank cartridge into your, at the time, bolt-action rifle. Later, the Garans used them.
Sometimes they used wooden projectiles.
Okay,
Well.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
But here's the thing: if you screwed up and used a real projectile,
Yeah, that's what I was getting into. Yeah,
bad day.
yeah. They had a few different grenade designs, not as many as today with all of the less lethal stuff, but they had a few different purposes of grenades.
Wait, time out.
Time out.
Less lethal does not count as a grenade. Just,
Okay.
I'm saying it right now.
So they had some devices.
There you go.
Pretty much all of them back then were made to kill people. They had like anti-personnel. They had some made to kill people with shrapnel, some made to kill people with concussion, overpressure, stuff like that.
Flechettes?
Flechettes. I don't know.
Oh no, beehive rounds.
Yeah, but I'm talking back World War II.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah,
if they had the flechettes and the stuff. I don't know if they thought about that yet. Anyway, in Vietnam, they were looking for more ultimate ways to kill people that had not yet been thought of, and to get away from dangerous things like Glenn pointed out with the loading a live
That's a
round.
customer. Hold on. Money. Okay. No, you keep talking.
I'm gonna keep talking. So they said, hey, we need a way where you can't, accidentally load live rounds in your rifle grenade setup and blow yourself up or anything horrible like that. So they did away with that, and they designed the M79 man-portable grenade launcher, firing self-contained grenade rounds that, hey, you're not going to mistake that for your 7.62 NATO round. Like, not going to happen. So they had this, and this was all great. They had this big leaf sight. The M79 was like super accurate. You could adjust the sights in single shot. It was like a ginormous break barrel shotgun, basically, that shot the 40
I
mil.
think it was made by Arrington and Richards.
I didn't research that one a lot, so I don't know. But so they had this, and it was good for a time. And then they said, you know what? There's a lot of times when this grenadier guy does not need to fire his 40mm weapon. Like he may just have one guy come out of a hut, or some dude in the river on a sampan. They're like, hey, I'm gonna get that guy, and they're like, well, my M79, and he's small and he's one guy. So this was not really practical all the time. So a lot of the time, this poor grenadier had to result to, I should say result, that's the wrong word.
No, result. What word are we looking for?
Not result.
Resolve?
Rely.
Rely.
He had to rely on
there we go.
his 1911 secondary weapon.
It was an R word.
It was a word with an R. I knew I was somewhere around there. So he had to get his 1911 out and use it on somebody because it didn't warrant trying to lob a 40 mil round into their location, position, or it was one guy, or he was trying to clear some huts. And that's another thing with these grenades. You definitely don't want to be in a room next to one when it blows up. That's bad. And again, by Vietnam, they had figured out that all that was horrible, fratricide stuff. They didn't like that.
Yeah.
So they had developed spinning safety fuses that do not arm the round until it has traveled a certain distance, which I looked up.
Oh, we have notes.
And that distance is 14 to 38 meters, which again, variable
That's
due
kind
to
of a big area.
due to subcontracting.
Oh,
this is
yeah.
my guess. That's my speculation.
Lowest bidder guy.
46 to 125 feet, that bad boy would arm. So again, if you're trying to clear a hut in Nam with your M79, all you're going to do if you see somebody, at this 20-foot distance is, fire an undetonated 40 mil round into them, which will hurt a lot, but not necessarily kill them. And also, you only have one, and you just fired it. So a lot of times they will be, running around with their pistol. And the military found this not an ideal solution. They said, what would be even better than this setup is if we had a grenade launcher that you could put under a standard infantry rifle, and that way they could use either one whenever they wanted. And if they're clearing houses, shooting guy with AK on a sampan or whatever, they can just engage them with that, and then when it's time to tube it out, they can switch to their
Tube it out.
tube it out.
What?
I came up with that just
I
now.
like it.
Okay.
Tube it out.
So they can tube it out
Yeah.
by switching to their underslung grenade launcher. That was the plan. And for that plan, they got Colt, who had just developed their new fancy AR-15 M16.
Not Samuel Colt, the guy.
Yeah,
Colt,
not the guy,
company.
like the dead guy's company.
Yeah.
That continue to, obtain
Make things.
cool patents and make things. So yeah, so I should backtrack a little. Colt didn't develop the AR-15. They got it from Gene Stoner and the rest of his Armalite development team. Because
Don't give it away, man. That's going to be another Vault episode.
So stay tuned for that one. Anyway, so 1965, they had these new toys. They said, Colt, make us an underbarrel grenade launcher. So Colt, now this is a specific guy. I looked this up.
Oh, really?
This guy, Carl Lewis,
The great Carl.
The great Carl. He worked for Colt, and he basically, as far as I could tell, reading on the internet, developed that XM148 pretty much by himself. The military called it the XM148. Colt had some kind of cool marketing designation, like Colt Grenade Launcher 4 or something. Anyway, so they tried this. They field tested them in Vietnam, mostly with SF. From what I read specifically, the 5th Special Forces Group, Mac VSAW, got a lot of them. And they tried these on their XM177E2s. When they lengthened the barrel, they also added a spot to put this XM148 grenade launcher. And it was kind of similar to the 203. Let me pull up a picture to show you guys. It had a 10-inch barrel, and it had a 16.5-inch overall length.
Really?
Now, compare that, yeah, it was long. So compare that to the later 203, which when it came out had a 12-inch barrel, but only a 15-inch overall length. Yeah, I got the 12-inch one there.
12-inch barrel.
That was the original barrel length.
Ooh.
They switched to the 9-inch pretty much. More on that later.
9-inch.
So they had this XM148, and this was cool because they now had their underslung grenade launcher that they wanted. It was single shot like the 203, slid forward to load it like the 203. Where it differed from the 203, except for obviously the length, you know. They were.
I know. Is that the one that tilted?
No.
Oh, crap.
It didn't tilt. But what it had was these levers on it, like these big, basically heavy gauge wire, and it went back here. So you had one, I think on one side, I've never actually held a real one, I just saw internet pictures, but they had one that you would pull to cock it, and they had another one that was the trigger, and that would actually end up back here. So the idea was, actually I think it ended up way back here, so the idea was you could quickly, you know, get to your grenade launcher trigger. But the bad news in reality was like leaves and branches and vines and your web gear could also get to your trigger. So that was all decided to be not that cool. Because that could happen. It could get bent. It was a little problematic. Yeah. So the government said, you know what, we'd like a redo on that. And Colt was busy building thousands of M16s for them. So this other company stepped in, AAI, which stands for Aircraft Armaments International. They developed the M203 grenade launcher. So like I said, it had the smarter, you know, links. They were like, hey, we made this thing, you know, a little shorter, but it's got a 2-inch longer barrel. So that's great, right? That'll up the velocity. Yeah. Later, they found out no, it really didn't.
How's it go? No.
Mr. Launcher, it go all the way at 9 inches. It won't go any faster. So they figured that out. That by 9 inches of barrel, you were already getting max velocity on all your different rounds that the government fired through it. There was absolutely no point for having a 12-inch barrel. So starting sometime around the late 90s, early 2000s, they were like, yeah, that's dumb. So they started only making 9-inch barrels, which, you know, it's handier, it's shorter, they don't bump into as much stuff, looks a lot cooler with your suppressor.
That's true.
So that was all good. And again, developmental wise, you know, when they first came out, they had the little sheet metal bracket holding it to your barrel. They originally first mounted these on M16A1s. They were not technically designed to mount on any of the carbines that they had in service at the time. Like the
XM1.
They had the 1772, but see, remember the XM177E2 was designed specifically for mounting the XM148 with this little grenade ring. Now they had some pretty creative
armors. Name for the Air Force for the XM177?
They called it a GAU-5/A.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, and
I didn't think you'd know that.
You didn't think I knew that. And later they actually adopted the GAU-5A/A when they switched to. Is it 14.5-inch barrel?
Yes.
That's the only difference. Didn't think I knew that either, did you?
I did not.
Okay.
I didn't know it. I just kind of agreed. I knew the GAU-5 part though.
And that stands for Gun Aircraft Unit.
Gun Automatic Unit.
Okay. You got me. Our knowledge combined, we got Captain
like
Planet
superpowers. Yeah.
Wonder Twins.
It's cool.
That's gay.
Activate.
No, that's gay. I'm not gonna do it.
You get to be water. I'm gonna be like a plant. You get to be water.
So where were we? So they had this M203. It was the knob. Oh yeah. So some pretty creative armorers figured out you could put a 203 on your XM177E2 by slightly modding the mounts, and it would just end up canned it down a little bit. So you know, just use your Wonder Vision while aiming the thing. When not using your Wonder Vision, they developed 2 types of sights for it: leaf sights. the aforementioned leaf sight, and the quadrant sight, which I do not have an example of today. The quadrant sight mounted on the carrying handle, and the quadrant sight would go out to a 400-yard range.
Pretty optimistic.
The leaf sight goes to 250-yard range, and the reason that the leaf sight doesn't go further is because on the M16 anyway, once you get past 250, you can't see the target through the front sight because the end of the barrel blocks the target view. So that's why they didn't make that longer. But that's the way they're designed to be used. The leaf sight works in conjunction with the front sight of the host weapon. So you actually line up whatever notch you want, say like the 100-meter notch. You line that up with the top of the front sight post and then the target. Now with this, you're actually going to have the same problem because of the suppressor on here that they had with the M16A1.
But the important part is it looks cool with the suppressor on it.
It looks really cool, but that's what they don't show you in the video game. You have to actually take this off.
No, Mr. Geoff.
In order to...
Your flashlight is dirty.
It is dirty. No. That's a lot of carbon.
Yes, it is. You shoot this.
And it turned green from oxidation.
Yep.
But it still works fine, though.
He's like a scientist.
Anyway, so you would elevate that, you know, put the front sight on your target. Basically aim it like it's a ginormous, you know, pistol sight that you have to get your head way above in order to see the target. So, yeah.
And from personal experience, lugging this around kind of sucks.
However, it does only weigh 3 pounds. So the AAI guys were kind of onto something. The older
that weighs 3 pounds. This weighs about a pound. I put 12 of them on you, there's 12 pounds. Then you have this thing, which weighs 7 pounds. Then you have magazines that are full, which weigh, I don't know, 5 pounds.
But look, it all got better from the M14 and its muzzle launch rifle grenades. And the data I had showed half a pound for the HEPs. Yeah. But I'm sure they, I mean, I've never had to lug them over hill and dale, so I'm sure they weigh a lot when you're out there soaking wet, carrying all your gear to kill people. But the whole deal with the M16, the new underslung grenade launcher, they were like, hey, lightweight weapons with lots and lots of firepower. That was their goal. So again, they had that with their M203, with their 12-inch barrel, later the 9-inch barrel. Later somebody said, hey cool Special Forces guys, what if you didn't have to mess with this wire retainer setup? And yeah, speaking of that, let me fully tell you guys about this. So you saw the bushings, you saw the little sheet metal stamping thing. Okay, well they go inside of this.
It's a very
These are over your barrel. Okay, you got 2 screws, one on each side. They go through here like this, and they go into threaded helicoils in the M203 receiver in the front. And normally and again, not in the military, so I'm not exactly sure who did it, but I think it was a depot armor. Some guy in a dark secret room would install these screws
with a Dremel.
With a Dremel maybe. Yeah. And then normally they have holes in the screws, and they would normally what they call a dummy cord, or I think the official TM called it safety wire. Safety wire. They would use wire, and they would put that through the hole in the screw and wrap that around and bring it to the other side, put it through the other hole and wrap it around. And that way your screws could not accidentally come unscrewed if in fact you forgot to, you know, tighten them with your screwdriver.
It's like old-timey glue stuff.
Like before Loctite.
Loctite.
They had
old-timey Loctite. Yeah.
Also, wire is less expensive for the government than Loctite that hadn't been invented yet.
Well, yeah, I guess so. It sounds good. It was. Wire is less expensive than Loctite.
So now, your tax dollars, you know, they were spent better back then.
Yeah. No, that's true.
They had this little stop thing. This positioned the grenade launcher the correct distance actually from the front handguard cap. That's what it indexed off of. So right behind your A-frame front sight, you got your handguard cap, and this would push off of that. Because see, when you mount this grenade launcher on the M16, M4, whatever, it's going to the back. It's got a little roll pin that engages the barrel nut, and the job of all this mounting structure is to keep it pushed back so that when it recoils, it's sitting firmly against that barrel nut, which is firmly against your shoulder, hopefully.
That's something. Recoil. I've always found these to sound kind of like a aluminum baseball bat hitting when you light them off. I don't know, is it go to tube? I think it was. Go to tube, I think it was.
I think I said tube out.
Tube out,
when you're tubing.
When you
get your tube on.
It sounds like an aluminum baseball bat. It's just tonk. It's really cool, and it kicks about like 410, I guess. Between 410 and 20 gauge.
I'd say it's about like a 20 gauge.
Yeah.
I've read guys on the net.
He's kind of a pussy.
They said that it was like worse than 12 gauge. They're wrong. It's not worse than 12 gauge.
No, it is on Call of Duty.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's horrible in there. Yeah, the recoil's immense. Yeah.
But basically, you can shoot one a long time and it's not going to bother you, especially if you have this cool, you know, Sopmod stock with the rubber. Ooh, rubber pad. You're not like, yeah, it's good.
It's like a Packmeyer pad.
Yeah. So how you load one? We can talk about that.
Okay.
There's a safety here. You want that on when you load it for safety. This is your barrel latch. If you notice when you press it, the barrel springs up, you know, even straight up. So it's got a little spring in there.
That's because it's excited to be loaded.
If it has been fired, like so, whenever you pull the barrel forward, that actually cocks it. It doesn't have a hammer in there, but it's got a spring-loaded striker. And there's a part that you can't really see, but this little stainless-looking part, it cocks it whenever you pull it forward.
Something to do with that, don't it?
It is that guy. And when you load your rounds, you basically just get them inside the barrel and close it on there, and good to go.
Notice the weapon's on safe.
The weapon is on safe, and I'm gonna probably take that out. And once you remove it, you'll see how it's kind of trying to tilt down, even when it's level or past level. That's the ejector trying to do its job. You got this spring-loaded ejector right here. You got an extractor that's just this bent piece of stamped sheet metal, and it's got a spring under it. It grabs the rim of your casing. This is a nylon casing because this is just a practice round. On the scary kill people stuff, they use aluminum casings, which can withstand a little higher pressure. They got to be able to withstand higher pressure because they're firing a heavier payload. So it takes more pressure to get that down.
Now, on that note, the 40mm grenades that fire out of the Mark 19 automatic grenade launcher are different.
Totally.
And a lot higher velocity than the 40mm grenades that fire out of the 203.
Yes. And I was
I
was about to say they're not totally different, but they're slightly different. The ones that the M203 and the M79 and all of the U.S. handheld 40mm systems and NATO 40mm systems use is 40 by 46 millimeter low pressure. Okay, and the Mark 19 grenades that Glenn mentioned that are more boss, they are 40 by 53 millimeter. They did that on purpose so that you can't put the more powerful one into your 203 and blow yourself up.
Oh, I get a text message.
And they are also belt fitted.
Yeah, and also, oh, feeding. You forgot. The 203, also before the 203 came out, or maybe about the same time, I'm not sure. They also had the China Lake pump grenade launcher.
They did.
Which was neat, but it was a little complicated. It had a tendency to break. They also had, I don't even know the name of it, but it was a side magazine fed 40mm grenade launcher. They have one in the museum not too far from here, actually. It's cool. It's cool as hell because it's like the only one.
It's neat.
It's neat.
And I saw some pictures. They were looking at different over-under weapons and stuff. They had something called the SPIW project. SPIW was a special purpose individual weapon. And it basically was this huge money pit where they were trying to dump money into developing the most lethal infantry weapons ever devised by man. And after they decided that they didn't want to spend any more money doing that, they kind of abandoned it. But I think that's where they first started to work on 20 mil infantry grenades that were launched.
Individual, no, not the individual, the AOIW.
OICW, Objective Individual Combat Weapon. That was, I don't know if that was an extension of the SPIW program, but they definitely used a lot of research from it when they decided to make a new money pit in the 80s. And that basically didn't result in a lot either, other than HK getting a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, somebody always gets rich, and it's not the smaller people.
And speaking of the high-low pressure system, that's what it's called. What these all these 40mm grenades use, even the Mark 19, they use what they call a high-low propulsion system, which was developed by, guess who, Glenn? Guess who developed the high-low propulsion system?
McDonald's.
Nazi Germany.
Ah, damn it! I should.
They
towards all these cool German weapons, and I didn't know.
I knew his Air Force stuff.
Damn.
Yeah,
failed.
So they developed the high-low pressure system because A, they were super smart, and B, they were really running out of good materials to make artillery out of. So some scientist, I don't know his name, but he was like, hey, you know what? What if you didn't have to contain high pressure in your whole artillery barrel and breech and stuff? What if you only had to contain it at the shell casing and the breech block? And he figured out how to do it. So the way they work is, you can see this little inner part here, where it's tiny.
The inside thing.
The inside
what is it?
thingy. So basically, you got what on a normal cartridge, like a small arms cartridge. This would be your case head. So any of you that have studied the cross section, you already know it's got that big reinforced curve in it because it has to maintain the highest pressure right here because it's not supported by the chamber, right? So that's why they're shaped like that. Well, they basically created or added a high pressure area to that head that's in here, and you insert from the back basically a 38 special blank in the case of this 40 millimeter US round. But the Germans, I don't know what they use, but that was their high pressure area, same concept. And whenever it fires, it generates extremely high pressure only on this inside tiny area, not even in the whole casing. And
what rounds would the Germans have used? Do you know?
I don't know. It was some kind of German round that they developed that for. I know they saw very extremely limited production because basically Russians and stuff were up in their capital and they were losing and they didn't have time to make many of these. But the idea was sound, and some U.S. guy after the war was like, you know what, that was a sound idea. And at some point when they were thinking about under-barrel grenade launchers, somebody got a light bulb and they dusted off that old German idea and they said, let's do it.
They tended to dust off a lot of old German ideas.
But the good idea was, you know, with your cool lightweight aluminum weapons, this lets you get away with using an all aluminum barrel, all aluminum receiver to contain this pressure because of the high-low system. So picking up where we left off, the high pressure is in this little chamber, and this has a single hole. Most of the anti-personnel high explosive rounds, they use little tiny holes in the side, but the point is they vent pressure from this high pressure area into the rest of the inside of the casing, which is big. There's a big volume difference between this part and this little tiny part. So I think it's Boyle's ideal gas law. Some physics law states that whenever you're going from a really concentrated high pressure to an area with lower pressure and bigger volume, that bigger volume makes your pressure drop. And so it makes...
No, that's, no, it's not the Venturi effect.
It disperses the pressure.
I thought it was Boyle. Is it Boyle?
We'll go with Boyle.
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
So obviously I didn't make enough
I was
notes.
thinking of stuff in Venturi, so...
Yeah, like airfoils and stuff.
No. But here's the important part. This makes great shot glasses.
There you go. So basically it's got a shoving effect. The high pressure goes from this little contained area to the bigger area, and it basically shoves that round out of there instead of where you touch off all your powder in your big reinforced case and it's all high pressure instantly everywhere.
Well, not everywhere.
Well, everywhere that is sealed up behind that projectile. So this way it shoves the projectile out and it continues to accelerate as it goes down the barrel until about 9 inches where, like we said, it's no longer doing that. They got a driving band, which is the metal part that you can see here between the nylon and the plastic cap or windshield. It's got a driving band, and I think those are zinc. They basically wanted some cheap soft metal, and whenever it hits the rifling in the launcher barrel, it starts to spin.
On artillery, you have, instead of the round going into the rifling, you have driving bands that go into the rifling that contain the pressures, I guess you could say. That's because usually your artillery rounds are steel, and you don't want your steel rounds going into your steel rifling because that wears them away a lot. So they use like brass or zinc or just hot metal or whatever to, you know, as a driving band, and that won't wear away your rifling as much.
And you really want to use soft stuff with this because, again, barrel's aluminum.
Yes.
Really soft driving band stuff. But it basically is like a mini artillery round. It's like pocket artillery, and it let the infantry guys
literally
engage targets that they couldn't get with direct fire from their rifles. Maybe you got enemy dudes behind a defilade. You're like, hey man, they're all taking cover like smart people over there. What are you gonna do? You got that guy shows up. He's like, let's tube them. You know,
you gotta get your tube on.
Got the technology. Launch on them with your launcher. So they had quadrant size. They had leaf size. We talked about how they shortened the barrels.
We did.
We talked about how they got away from the little sheet metal thing. At least with SF dudes, you got to realize the most people that used their 203 were the SF dudes. They tubed like crazy. They had like Navy SEALs and stuff running around in the 90s. They had these 14.5 inch like the M16A1 carbines, and the 727 carbine was the first one that they got that had the M4 profile. Before that, they had these lightweight .65 pencil barrels. their armorers used to take basically pipe and they put it over the barrel to give it this stop, like you see on an M4 barrel. They just had a little section of pipe between the flash suppressor and this, and again, it's pushing the launcher back, sandwiching it right there, keeping it back against the barrel nut. That's all it had to do. Well, Colt finally wised up and said, hey, we need to make a purpose-built carbine barrel that you can mount a 203. So that was the XM4
Plus
project.
The M4 profiles. But I mean, not to say it's flimsy. Use that word again. But the M4 profile is a little bit more robust than the pencil profile.
Yeah, it is more robust. And the SOCOM barrels that they run today, which this is even thicker under the handguards because they did a whole bunch of testing and figured out that it was harder to melt if they made it thicker under here.
Yeah.
So anyway, they came out with this QD mount. I believe Knight's Armament invented this mount. The earlier ones had a little wire retainer thing. This one has a rotational retainer thing. And you push the rotational thingy, flick the mount open.
No, we don't really need to see that because we'll show them that. Oh, we'll show them it. It is quick.
It is quick. Yeah. There's your quick detach. Notice you got slots right here in your, like I said, SOCOM heavy barrel. And that is so you can mount the 203 by getting it in that rear section right there.
It does this.
Because again, it was made originally for the lightweight barrels. I noticed on Colt's SOCMod M4 that they're selling, or SOCOM M4 whatever, for the civilian market, they did not put these cuts in the barrel. The rest of the barrel is the same except for being 16 inches and not having these cuts. So for some reason they omitted that. But that's why those cuts are there if you ever see them.
I know why they omitted it. Cheap immigrant labor.
It's a little cheaper if you don't have to mill the flats. But anyway, so they
actually maybe they just couldn't say that in Spanish. Mill the flats. See.
So yeah, so a Lewis Machining Tool made this launcher. A lot of companies have made these launchers. AAI, I think, only made a few, and EIEIO, and they ran into some financial trouble. And so Colt was right there to say, hey, we'll contract that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So Colt made a lot of M203s.
Colt's the company that cares.
They were also made by Airtronics.
Really?
Like today, Airtronics makes the Airtronics made that barrel. I looked up the cage code on it.
Wow, dude.
Lewis Machining Tool,
You have no life, do you?
Knight's Armament Company made them. If you're a civilian and you want to get an M203, basically LMT and DSA, DS Arms are your only two options as far as I know that'll sell you one.
And for those wondering, how I can't get a grenade launcher, you can. It's a destructive device. You get it one just like, same paperwork as with a suppressor, machine gun, short barrel rifle, short barrel shotgun. But having said that, I'm getting the signal that we're running low on battery.
Okay.
So, what we're going to do is cut this a little short. We're going to go out shooting this, as far as y'all concerned, because we've actually already shot it and got the video. It's in the can, as you say, in the film industry. So what we're going to do is go out and shoot it, and we'll also, you know, say some more stuff about shooting it, like, oh, we're having fun, you know, and that kind of stuff. Ooh.
That's how you change the barrel.
Bigger.
That's easy too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We only got the one size barrel.
But you can change these. This is just 2 screws. If you want, you can go old school. I'll show you guys my old school M16A2 setup.
Ooh,
that I you know, saw on TV in the 90s when I was a kid. It's the kind of stuff you get older, you're like, I want to have that one day. So
now he does.
Now I do.
Well, we'll be back in a little while. Y'all hang out.
So here we are at the range with our 203. Got a nice little breeze. Got a 200-yard targets. We're going to set the sight on 200 meters and see what happens.
I saw it hit on the left side of the burn.
Yeah.
You want to try dry firing it so you can get used to the trigger? It's kind of a long trigger. Like, go ahead and take the safety off and dry fire like you shoot it for real. Okay. That's the safety. Flip it forward and down. There you go. All right, now hold your sights in alignment, and you'll have to ease that thing back. It's got some creep to it.
Is it fire? Like,
It's
not loaded?
Oh, the trigger, yeah. Like, 'cause you got to hold the sights on target while you use the trigger back.
Yeah.
My stance is any different than the normal one?
You're okay. You just got to go that far back till it fires. All right.
Geoff.
All right. Okay, so you good with that?
I think so.
All right. Bump it forward. Hit the barrel edge. There you go. Put the safety on. Flip safety. There you go. All right. Another net. It's all you. Pull the barrel back sharply.
Hey,
There you
Glenn,
go.
I like this ring.
Safety on.
Yeah. Now you're hot. Right here you go. Dude, is that a TV round?
Cool.
All right, man.
Remember when you shoot it, run it.
Okay.
Come on, dude. Let's get out the way.